Okay, welcome everyone to the Monday, April 26th, regular meeting, April 26th, 2021, regular meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board. In keeping with the emergency ongoing order from Governor Charlie Baker to limit gatherings and maximize social distancing, and under legislation passed to address remote board meetings during the emergency declaration, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. The meeting will also be available on ECAT. To use Zoom, you can follow the link on the planning board agenda on the front page calendar of the town's website. While board members and commissioners and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as an attendee, meaning they are muted with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raised hand function found on Zoom, or make a request with the Q&A function. If you are joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request of the chair and email the materials to the board staff for sharing on screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. Okay, board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and a second, so that it will be clear to the audience and to the minute takers who made the motion. All votes will be made by roll call. To ensure that we have a quorum, we will start with the roll call. Strange here.
Stetson here.
Sarek here.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. And in the absence of Chris Anderson tonight, Thomas Kedem will be participating as a full member. So Stephanie, everything is Sawmill and Owl Ridge are continued, correct?
Right, both to May 24th.
Right, okay, so we'll go through the motions now, but just FYI, anyone who is here for the 58 Mill Street, Owl Ridge Estates, or 560 Foundry Street, Sawmill Village, both of those have been continued to May 24th, or will be continued. So if someone on the board would make a motion for 58 Mill Street to continue, I'd appreciate it.
Motion to continue 58 Mill Street and Owl Ridge Road to May 24th.
Is that a second? Did I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Strange eye.
Shane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Sarek, aye.
Okay, all right, and now the same for 560 Boundary Street, Sawmill Village.
Motion to continue Sawmill Village to May 24th.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, Strange eye.
Shane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Sarek, aye.
Great, thank you all. All right, next we have a continued site plan review for 12 Red Mill Road.
Yep.
Now, I know Stephanie probably has to let a few people in for this.
Yep.
I will turn over to you.
Let's see. I thought I removed it. Greg Swan, if you want to be a panelist, raise your hand. Okay, I think I have everyone. If there is someone from the project team I missed, please raise your hand.
So, Steph, I'm just wondering, what's the game plan here, procedure-wise? Is there a presentation?
Well, after the last meeting, I think the primary questions the board had was related to the, excuse me, to the lighting. And lighting cut sheets were provided, which the board has. The photometric plans came just around 6 o'clock. I don't know if Sarah has them handy and if the board wants to review them.
I do have them handy, just.
We also, there was an on-site meeting with the neighbors. They asked a lot of questions. I think the questions were pretty much answered. One concern that had been raised and raised by the board, I think in particular by you, Greg, was about the buffer between the project once it was cleared for the new building, and the level of camouflage is the word that comes to mind, but that's not the word I'm trying to reach for. Screening, and that there are a lot of higher trees, more mature trees, and maybe not as much lower canopy, especially during the winter. So what was agreed on, and if I misspeak, either Greg or Dayfield can speak up, but was that it seemed to make sense to proceed with the clearing and then meet with the neighbors out at the site and determine what would be the best replanting to meet the needs of providing screening. There are a number of people here in the audience, I think from the public. You have in your binder letters from, at least one letter from, you have a report. That was one of the things that the board was told would be provided. Ty and Bond did provide a comment letter commenting on site selection and the construction operational impacts. And we have a representative here tonight from Ty and Bond. It's Ben. You can't see him on the screen right now. Yes, Ben is here. And you might have him talk about that and what their report says.
Okay, and just wondering, so I know I have a receipt of a letter from Johan, Tokyo, and Morgan on April 23rd, which I received on the 23rd, and then I know at about 6:05 tonight, I received one dated April 26th. Do my fellow board members have that April 26th letter?
We didn't, I don't think we had a chance to send that out. Suzanne, was that in the revised binder?
It was in the binder from last week, towards the end. Yes, should be.
Oh, were the minutes at the end, or was there
Yes.
another letter at the end?
Yes, towards the.
Letter from April 26th was in something last week?
No, it would have been, we don't have the April 26th.
That's what I'm talking, right, I'm talking about the April 26th,
Yeah.
the one that you sent me today at 6, so, okay.
Yeah, no, we don't,
Okay.
that has not been sent to the board as yet.
So, okay, so I'm just trying to direct traffic here, so you want Ty and Bond to give a report, is that what I heard?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it would make sense to have them go over their report. Ben, do you want to do, there you are.
I am here. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. It sounded a little scratchy.
Yeah, it sounded scratchy on my end from what I'm connection or what, but I can briefly try it, but I can at least go over a quick summary of what provided. My name is Ben Levesque. We are serving the role as owner project, helping the town through the design treatment plan. And we were asked, I believe I submitted on Friday, that just discuss site selection process, kind of what went into that in determining and where the water treatment plant, as well as addressing some of the construct that would have, or can be in TIJect. Again, it was some of the highlights where we went over just why the different debt, sort of the considerations, the cons of the two sites that were, and just basically summarized it in the April 12th presentation at the previous planning board meeting. Some commentary or some information, additional phase impacts that put up the project. Again, just additional information for the board while reviewing this site plan review. Delve into a little bit more detail if you'd like to review it, but I believe that was to provide.
And Stephanie or Mr. Strange, I know Ben's connection's pretty bad, Ben, but I can summarize any questions there are. I just think it's a technical difficulty here, but I think I can summarize from the concerns of the neighbors, and I assume they'll speak up if I misrepresent this, but their main concern was, why is the building where it is? Could it be moved further away? And that's what the tie and bond OPM letter really goes through, is that site selection. And the long and short is, this is the ideal spot for the plant, and moving the plant further into other town property by other wells was not really feasible for many reasons. And the cost would be much higher, on the tune to, just for utility piping, $500,000 to $750,000 just for the water lines to put the plant further in Norton. There are other concerns I think were mainly the screening, what they're going to be looking at. We understand that it's something they're not used to. They don't want it in the backyard. We get that. And we're trying to be sensitive to that, but we've located as far to the west as we can on that lot that the topography allows. And again, we're happy to answer any questions there are. I have the full staff here, and I think maybe Ben will re-engage with a better connection, hopefully, but if there are any questions for tie and bond.
Stephanie, I see a couple questions down the Q&A and under more. I'm not sure what they are. Please improve sound quality.
Well, we just,
Out of my scope.
yeah.
And there's a chat.
The attorney is, I do not see the letter referenced on the site plan page. The letter from April 23rd, the letter from Friday, is on the website on Permitize. The letter that we just received at 6 o'clock, I don't know that Suzanne has had a chance to upload that as yet. We were getting ready for the meeting.
It's under the public.
Oh, the one.
The first one's under public hearing.
Right. I believe, Suzanne, did the tie and bond letter get uploaded to Permitize?
No,
Okay, we will upload that to
we will
Permitize.
upload. I could do that now.
But that was in the package sent to the board last week.
Yes, yes, it
That's
was.
where I received it.
I'm gonna upload it.
So perhaps I should start with the board members. Are there any board members that have questions for the folks that are assembled?
Yeah, I have a question regarding like the clear cutting. Is there like a limit of the clear cutting that would leave some existing vegetation for the proposed buffer?
Oh,
Yes, there is. I know, Sarah, can you share that? If that's all right.
Yeah.
Share that limited clearing.
Hold on just 1 second. So on this page here, which is the demolition and erosion control plan, you can see the limit of clearing shown right here. And basically aligns with the 25-foot side yard depth at its minimum.
Okay, just please place your mouse at the end of the building as closest to the neighbors.
So the edge of the building is right here. That's closest. I guess it's this corner that's closest.
Okay, and then that's pavement around the building.
Yes, this gray is pavement, and then there's swales around the site, and then the edge of the grading is this limit of clearing.
And a typical building like this always has pavement all the way around it, even on that.
Yeah, we want to provide 360 access.
Okay, and I guess the lighting, we just kind of frequently require all our applicants to have provide dark sky lighting. So I understand that these lights may not be on frequently. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I want to, but maybe just to comply with what we impose on most.
Yeah, so here,
commercial and residential. Go ahead.
Here's our photometric plan, and the red is shown as the spread of the lighting. A lot of the blue, as you can see, these are foot candles. They're kind of 0 and 0.1, and this is when all the perimeter lighting is turned on in the doors and the lighting over the doors.
No, I understand. Yeah, it's just more that the lighting in aggregate in the entire town and region tends to lend itself towards looking in one direction at night and seeing bright light. So that's why we usually just don't really waver on that to a great extent. But if there's a reason that dark sky is not feasible for this location,
it mainly comes down to cost, I think, and we'll put it to the town if they want to provide dark sky compliant lights.
Okay, I can. Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
We wouldn't have a problem with dark sky compliant, but generally that's going to be with site lighting. This is just wall packs in the building that are switched on as needed. They're going to be off except for the 2 doors. So we typically, these wall packs are consistent with what we have on all our town buildings now. They're just standard wall packs that will cast the light out to light the driveway. To get dark sky, we'd have to probably put pole mounted lights around that would light the area.
okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that the cost is prohibitive, in general.
That's the only concern. If that was a requirement of the planning board, we could definitely do it. Just seems like an unnecessary expense given the amount of time those lights will be on and probably very, very seldom used.
Yeah, I just leave it up to the other members, I guess, to see what they think about that, and how we might think about that.
Yeah, just Peter, if you don't mind, can I just jump in? Because I was going to bring this up too, just while we're on it, so we don't have to circle back. I think it's important to remember, because we've been requiring this for 12 years. It's actually in section 7.4.5 of our administrative rules and regs. And I know, Sarah, you responded that dark sky compliant fixtures for water treatment plants are not typical. That's not really how we look at it. What we're trying to do, sometimes we kind of scoff when we're on Route 138, which is lit up and with lots of light pollution from antiquated fixtures. And sometimes people scoff when we ask them to go to dark sky compliant. But the thought is, well, we're trying to change that over time. We're not going to be able to replace every building. Here, I'm trying to be sensitive to the neighbors. These folks are out, sort of in the boonies, as they say. They're out in the sticks. And I know these are wall packs, but there still are some pretty value-priced dark sky compliant wall packs available. And if there was ever a location I feel that really called for dark sky compliant, it would be this one. We have a neighborhood that's a little upset that there's going to be a building kind of that they're not used to going in the neighborhood. And I think if we could try to limit any light pollution, going up. And I see the photometric as well, shows that you've met our bylaw that way. But it would, the bylaw calls about anything that's above the floor surface. If we could look at, dark sky compliant, if it's prohibitive, that'd be one thing, but again, we demanded of our commercial, and residential applicants. So it's hard for me as chair not to keep that standard, especially, I think this is a application that really calls for it. So if we could look at that, I certainly would appreciate it. Thank you.
It's not a problem.
I have a question. When you say prohibitive, what are we talking about compared with the size and cost of this project?
We haven't done the analysis for the difference in cost between the lighting we've proposed and dark sky compliant lights. But I mean, dark sky compliant fixtures are typically slightly more expensive.
Okay, well, that's fine if you haven't looked at it. I mean, I think if I heard, Director Fields correctly, he's gonna look into it, so that's appreciated. So Peter, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I should don't really have that much more. Maybe just on back to the buffer. Were there some evergreen plantings proposed, or is it just other existing plants in the buffer all that is proposed at this point?
Yeah, so we represented, I think at the last meeting, that we'd be very willing to put any type of buffer plantings in there. It was our recommendation to wait until the clear cutting was done, or the site clearing was done before we determine the locations to best, put that in. We did meet with the neighbors, and we actually just asked them flat out, what do you want to see? Do you want to see, line of arborvitaes or eastern white pines down the property line? Let us know what you want. I don't think they had a consensus on what they were looking for. We're fine with giving them plantings and screening. That's not a problem. We just try to minimize the cutting necessary of the forested area. They did express the need for the desire for a berm, like a 2 or 3 foot high berm, but I explained that would probably require a 10 to 12 foot swath that have to be clear cut of existing trees because they're going to bury the roots and they'll die. So there's pros and cons to everything. We're fine with putting whatever the neighbors are really looking for. We're fine with that screening.
Let's just make sure any arborvitaes are deer resistant, so we don't have to circle back.
Noted.
Or maybe the slow growing, Canadian hemlock, that always seems to help out, but I'll leave that up to you, fine people. So Peter, are you?
Okay, those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay. Amas, do you have any more? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I don't have any question besides the fact that when an argument is brought up about being more expensive, probably we should be hearing what that means.
Sure. Yep, that's a valid point. Deb, do you have any questions?
Well, just as a follow-up, I was trying to zoom in, but what kind of foot candles are we talking about for the wall packs? Because if it's really minimal, I'm not sure if it's, how much of a point it is that we need to make them dark sky compliant. But what is the foot candles towards the?
Does this help? Zooming in?
Yeah, so like at the furthest edge, what is the foot candle reading there?
So they're cut off between the red and the blue is 0.5.
So it is it's pretty minimal, and we're still at that point. How far away are you from, say, the tree buffer?
I know, but we can see the lights everywhere in Brockton from both of our houses, right? I mean, that's kind of the general idea, in addition to the immediately adjacent neighbors. But I'm sorry, I'll just let you go.
Yeah, but I think you have to be careful not to confuse site lighting with like wall packs. And so I do generally think that the wall packs don't really add to that much light. But yes, of course, if you're trying to have zero lighting, then yes, I think. I just was wondering because I didn't know what we were talking about in terms of light pollution.
Yeah, I get you.
Well, I think it's important to remember too that the photometric doesn't represent the ambient light of the light pollution. This is what's cast on the ground, not what's going up in the air. So it's sort of, they're not really germane.
If I may for a second, just to please reiterate that this condition will only exist if water division personnel have to visit the site at night for an emergency. Dave, jump in here, but you know, all the work, all the maintenance that we're going to have to be doing on a regular basis will be done during the day, and 98% of the time, this is the condition you're going to have at night. There's going to be 2 lights on either end of the building, minimally lit, and as non-disturbed as possible.
Yeah, and I don't know if Rich can chime in. Rich, on well 3, I believe there's a wall pack on there now. I mean, it's probably never turned on. It's just as needed if someone has to go at night, if there's a power outage, they're starting a generator or something. So, I mean, I don't know if that's been an issue before with the neighbors. It'd be a very similar situation. The lighting at well 3 would be the same as the lighting here. But we're fine with, if a dark sky is required, we will do dark sky. We're just trying to minimize the need for, you know, a fixture that may not be needed.
Certainly understand that, all gentlemen, just trying to soften the blow for neighbors who, you know, didn't know this was coming. And frankly, trying to hold the town to the same standards we hold every other applicant, which, you know, our bylaw doesn't really give us 2 sets of criteria, one for the town, one, you know, and I think that's important that we, you know, handle this with an even hand. I understand these lights won't be on often, but I also understand this is, you know, there are 2 properties about 100 feet away that have been looking at trees forever. And granted, this land's zoned for this. This is an allowable use. I'm just trying to diligently navigate a amicable resolution for all completion. And I really don't think, even if we have 8 light fixtures, even if they're double the cost, it's a $15 million project, as I understand it. Like, I find that certainly can be, that's not too much of a scope creep.
I guess my only other question is maybe for the owner's rep, it sounded like in the beginning, maybe there was concern if this was the best location for it, which I think the water department's the engineers have done a good job explaining the reasons, but I wonder, is that something that's still, because now, you know, the lighting and so forth is just kind of mitigation on its proposed site, but is there still, you know, objection to this proposed site at this point?
Yeah, Ben, are you back on?
So is this better? I'm hoping.
Much better.
Yes.
All right. I don't know, but I apologize for for what that sounded like before. But everyone sounded bad to me too, so I reconnected. And it sounds a lot better. So I apologize. I don't know what you heard before. I won't reiterate my whole spiel that I had gone through. But one of the points of the letter that we had submitted about the site selection was to go through the process of why this site was in particular was picked, and through our review of EPG's process. And as of right now, this is the site that had been advanced for because it met the most criteria that were advantageous for the location of a water treatment plant for the treatment of wells 3, 5, and 7. The location on the site itself took into account setbacks, as well as the need to be away from wetlands and available grading and space needed to provide the necessary treatment components that are needed to provide the water quality that the town is trying to improve coming out of these wells. So there was a breakdown in that, in the letter that we had written about a little bit of the pros and cons for why the sites were looked at. And at the end of the day, this was the site that looked to be the most advantageous for all the different factors needed to provide a water treatment plant for the town.
Yeah, and if I could just expand upon that, this site, checked all the boxes, but the other sites, we do own a lot of land in this area. But the land inside the zone ones is restrictive because we can't put the drying beds, we can't have a septic system, so you have to be outside those areas. The remaining areas are primarily wetlands or extremely graded. There's a 80-foot elevation difference between the top of some of these hills near wells 5 and 7, 80 feet of grade, and then everything else was wetlands. So then you're also farther away from all the utilities you need to combine wells 3, 5, and 7 together. At 12 Red Mill Road, that's the most efficient way to do that. Putting the plant somewhere else on a hill or in a valley near wetlands would be cost prohibitive. We'd have to bring all those water lines back down and then back up. And that's close to $1 million worth of work just for water lines and gas lines and other utilities. So again, this was not done in a vacuum. It was very thought out. And unfortunately, I understand the neighbors' concerns, but the only site that really makes sense here is the 12 Red Mill Road.
Okay, thank you, David. Bob Stetson, do you have any questions or comments?
Not yet. Are we gonna hear from someone from the abutters tonight?
Yeah, I was just going through the board
Okay.
first, and I was gonna see if there's anybody.
No, I'd like to hear what their thoughts are at this point.
Okay, so, board members, anybody object to me? I'm gonna open this up to the public. Or Stephanie, do you have anything you want to add before we do that?
I don't at this point.
Okay, so, members of the general public, remember to please identify yourself and give your address for the record. And Stephanie, I'll let you direct traffic on it.
Okay, well, we have,
I see 3 hands up.
I see
Or 2 hands up in the Q and A.
2 hand in the, yeah.
So I'll let you do it.
Why don't we want to respond to the Q and A first, which the question is, where is the sound model report? Greg, as chair, could I ask that you ask whoever has the
Yeah,
background?
I was just gonna do that. There's someone, if you're not speaking, could everybody mute themselves? Because there's an awful lot of background noise coming from somewhere. Appreciate that. Sorry, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah. So the question is, where is the sound modeling report indicating that this project satisfies Mass DEP regulations 310 CMR 7.1? And I don't know who on the project team might want to answer that.
I can take that one if you want, Dave. Typically, the only thing that you may need to register would be the generator, if it's a certain size or not. But the decibel, the sound enclosure is rated for, it's a sound attenuation device that limits exterior sound, and that only would run in emergency and only activate once a week during the weekdays. As far as construction goes, there's requirements within the contract documents that the contractors have to meet for backup alarms, pollution, noise control, control of dust leaving the site, things like that that are included in that CMR reference.
Thank you.
And then the attorney's been waiting, Attorney Panbianco.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I would
oppose what was said right in the beginning of this hearing, in that the concerns were addressed at the site visit. We have, since that site visit, sent 2 letters to the board that have some 30 some odd questions that remain outstanding from our perspective. I would also note that at the site visit, Ms. Danielson stated that a peer review was being performed. I do not consider what was provided here today a peer review. It's simply an additional consensus here, not a traditional full-scale peer review. Nonetheless, that was provided to the town on Friday, from our understanding, not provided to anyone, not provided to the neighbors, not provided or posted. In my letter, we state that we wanted this to be continued, as we understood a peer review to be being performed, is what we were told at the site visit. And we'd like the opportunity, as we're entitled to review that. And at no point in time, though there were multiple responses from the town to that, did you mention, oh, it was done and here it is? That seems very shocking to me. I haven't seen that before in 16 years of doing this. We specifically asked for a document and you don't acknowledge it exists. But nonetheless, put that aside, these troublesome moments aside, I did want to ask if Mr. Field, if you had had the opportunity today to speak with the Mass DEP. I understand that Jim McLaughlin over at the Mass DEP had a conversation with Kathy Connell today, addressing the concern specifically of the location of the lagoons from her well, and that they, for Mass DEP considerations, need to be moved at least 500 feet from her well, which they aren't currently. And that was a conversation that I believe Jim McLaughlin was going to have with you directly. But I didn't hear that mentioned today. It's my understanding that he reached out to you to have that conversation, but I just want to touch on that as one point. But for what the concerns are raised in the 2 letters that we addressed, they aren't addressed on any new site plan and any amended site plan. That we would want to see those considerations being made. Are there considerations that would ultimately conclude in something that the neighbors could live with? Yes, of course, possibly, but we haven't seen those. And a lot of the questions that were raised tonight, we raise in our own letter, such as Mr. Field said that there was $1 million difference between the projects. We did a request for all the records that would demonstrate that. We asked how to prove that that valuation came in. There's nothing. There's no documentation that shows where that valuation comes from. And in a brief review of the letter that you say is a peer review, doesn't have any acknowledgement of what those values are. It's just made up figures at this point. We have no idea why the site was chosen, how the site was chosen. You can say that it's less expensive, but how is it less expensive? What is the difference in the costs? How is it chosen? Those are considerations that haven't been made. It sounds good that it's less expensive, but there's no proof of that. There's no evidence of that. And we've asked for it. They acknowledge it doesn't exist. So we have those considerations moving forward. That's essentially where we stand. Our letters are very clear that there is additional buffering that we would request, additional changes to the coloration of the building, which would be under your purview, which we talked about, and Richard said was certainly something that would be possible and worth a conversation. But we don't see it in any of the site plans. We don't see it changed in any of the designs or noted here today. We don't see any of the buffering that we had talked about being addressed in the new site plan, because there is no new site plan. They haven't taken what we've asked for and requested and amended what they're looking to do. It's just push on with what they're trying to do without actually taking into consideration any of the factors we've asked for, and without actually answering any of the questions that we've asked. Some of them I don't think are answerable because you haven't done the research necessary for it, but that's where we stand right now. We would still request that the board not act on this, as there is insufficient information before the board to make to have site plan review right now. I'll take any questions that the board might have.
Are there any questions from the board members for the attorney?
I mean, my question isn't really necessarily for the attorney, it's more for, you know, what is the peer review that the attorney is referencing, is that the tie and bond letter? Or is there something else referred to at this meeting? I guess that's a question for Stephanie.
I don't know why I would have committed to a peer review of, I'm not sure what level of peer review or what the attorney is wanting to see peer reviewed. At the meeting, alternatives were talked about, and the costs. I mean, if that's what he's talking about, that's something that, you know, Dave Field would need to respond to. I would not have committed to that.
Yeah,
I
Stephanie,
know.
you know, we thought the owner's project manager was our peer review, because our owner's project manager is hired on our behalf to review and go through the design and review the design through the design stages and make sure as a third party set of eyes to make sure everything's being done properly. And so we felt that was adequate for peer review. We stand by that.
The color of
Many
the
years of
building.
experience.
Yeah. The color of the building did come up, and it was suggested that maybe it be a green. I should have brought that up when I was summarizing the meeting. And I don't think anyone felt that was out of line.
I actually have a rendering of a green building that I can share.
Just while you go there, I just want to circle back real quick to Dave's last comment. So Dave, just so I understand, so Tie and Bond has been involved in the process from the get-go?
Yes, so because of the size of the project, we wanted to have an owner's project manager on board to work for us and, you know, work through the process. And that's exactly what Tie and Bond's doing. They also do water work and they do treatment plants like this. And that's why it's, anytime you have a project to scale, to have an owner's project manager is very important.
I mean, I guess the question I have for the abutters attorney is, you know, if you don't think that this location is appropriate, can you point to a different one or a better one? I mean, I guess that's the only question I would have at this point.
Sure, we can point to as we stated in our very first letter, April 12th or 13th, that further down, I think it's 24, not 12, that would be a better site. And further down within the own site where it's currently proposed would be a better location than where it is. There's still sufficient and adequate room in our understanding to be able to do so. So yeah, there would be two different sites. But when you look at how the town determined this particular site, there isn't any information provided that gives an actual analysis between A and B as to why. The costs, there isn't a single cost analysis here that shows it will cost $100,000 to move it 500 more feet, or go down to 24 Red Mill and it would cost an extra $1 million, as Dave Field said. There's no analysis of that. That's Dave Field just providing a number out of air. We haven't seen anything that demonstrates that. And that analysis needs to be done. I think we're entitled to that. And to have a fair peer review. A peer review isn't someone that's worked on this project from the start. That is certainly not what a peer review under planning board review or I've ever seen before as a peer review that has worked with them hand in hand from the start. It is an independent third party that provides a review of what has been proposed at this stage. And that's not what this is. And there's simply insufficient information for, we think, the board to move forward on this right now. There's ample opportunity for the town to provide this additional information. To say that we had no other questions is just, quite frankly, it's insulting. We had 30 extra questions since then that haven't been answered, quite frankly, and haven't been answered today, tonight during the hearing. So
Well, all due respect, those 30 questions came in at 6 o'clock tonight, so.
Yeah,
No,
didn't see them.
that's not true. You may have been provided them at 6 o'clock tonight. There were some 14
They're
or so.
dated April 26th, so even if they came in at 9 o'clock this morning.
There's, let me be clear, there's two letters. There's one on
the 23rd and one on the 26th, right? I understand. And I'm wondering, Attorney, you said there's 2 other sites that were better than this. Did you have that peer reviewed, or is that just your opinion? What do you base that on? Are you an expert?
No, I'm not an engineer. No.
Right, so, okay, so I think we need to be careful with our statements. I would certainly put more weight in folks that work in the industry, have worked with project and construction managers, owners reps from the get-go, and because a lot of thought has gone into the placement of this plant. I get that it may not be to the liking of your clients, but it wasn't just dropped in overnight. Quite a bit of work has gone into this, and there was a pretty impressive, extensive, in my opinion, presentation of that at the last meeting. So.
We asked for all the documentation. We did, and this might not be something that you're aware of, Chairman Strange, but we had provided a document request to the town for all documents related to this, and it was simply emails back and forth. There is no actual production of documents that shows the work that you're referring to. So the town is entitled to that, as much as the abutters, who are obviously residents of the town, are entitled to that. But we're entitled to see that information prior to the board making a decision. There's no hastiness in asking for that and asking for time to have that, or for the town to be able to produce that if they haven't done so already, which they haven't, but to produce the studies that demonstrate through a true peer review why it is that you selected this site. Outside of convenience, we don't have that.
But you know, I think you also have to think of this, and I don't disagree with some of your points, but let's not forget how zoning works. We're the planning board. We're not the conservation commission, for example. You know, if a project comes in, regardless of what type of project it is, if it's allowed by use and if it meets our bylaws, then the project, we're not here for a special permit. We're not here for a variance. This is site plan review, and we're being sensitive as best we can to to the abutters, because they're right, they're residents of the town just as we are. And as I expressed at the meeting last week, I'm one who, before I purchase any property, I always look what I always think worst case scenario, what can happen on my abutting properties, what can happen on the land that I don't own. And this land, this use that is proposed is allowed. It's frankly, it's a public service, necessary for a community of our size. So, it's not normal in site plan reviews to for abutters to demand a peer review or a different type of peer review that's gone on in the applicants during a long process. So I think we need to be respectful and careful with all our words. I understand there's emotions here, but this is a site plan review. This is the court of law, and I would ask everyone.
Greg, if I may say something too, and
Sure.
Dave and certainly you as chair can tell me if I'm out of line, but when you're looking at a project and you're going to have to run 500 more feet of pipes, utilities, you're going to have to bring in a significant amount of fill in order to level out the land, and you have a flat piece of land that's closer to where you can pull the utilities off. There's experience and knowledge that tells you which project is going to cost more money in the long run, and where you're going to invest your time and energy in evaluating alternatives.
And so at no point did we pull numbers from thin air. We have design professionals that worked on this project. The 24 Red Mill Road site is riddled with wetlands. So we didn't get in and explain to the neighbors when we did meet, because that was asked when we did meet. We did not design a building and compare the cost of designing something on Red Mill Road on a fictional site versus this site, but we know from our experience it's more expensive. Where I come up with the numbers is it's to get to 24 Red Mill Road is 3,000 more feet of pipe that we'd have to install at $200 a foot. So that's $600,000. We also have a gas line, we have electric, we have telecom, all those things. So you're talking $750 to $1 million just in utility costs, not dealing with the site itself. So this is not just a made up number. This is not something that we've arbitrarily done and trying to force into a spot. We have a site, 24 Red Mill Road, it doesn't seem suitable based on the wetlands, based on the proximity, the grades. We haven't got to do borings. We've never flagged it because it just didn't meet our site selection criteria. Why would you go and do borings in wetlands when you know you can't build there? So it's just the logical site here is 12 Red Mill Road. I thought EPG did a great job of laying out how we got to that point, and Ty and Bonds let us very clear in, you know, backing up that process, and that's the agreed upon site.
I can appreciate that. However, literally none of the information that you just stated was produced in our records request. So there's no way to review what you're saying outside of trust what you're saying. And I can appreciate that, but we're also entitled to that information that you claim exist and we don't have. And I would note that yes, Chairman Strange, you're 100% correct. There's two different kind of considerations here. There's the concerns of the neighbors and what is actually the purview of the board here tonight. But the site plans reviews do have to look into, for site plan review and approval, whether or not it's detrimental to the property owners and the abutting neighbors. That is part of the requirements here, and we maintain that it is and it will be. There are still alternatives within the plan that has been proposed, not fundamentally different. There are still alternatives that can easily be addressed that simply haven't been. That's why we're asking for them to make those considerations that we've addressed on the site plan so that it becomes what is approved, rather than have an approval that then at some point in time might change and might meet with the neighbors and have conversations. We think the proper requirements for the board is to actually have a site plan that is approved that has those considerations taken into consideration, not the financial considerations, not those things. Those you're right. Those are outside the purview of the board, but it is necessary for us to bring up. But we do think it's necessary for the site plan that has been proposed to be amended to take into account those considerations that were raised both at the site visit and in the correspondences following up on that site visit. And we haven't seen a site plan that addresses those.
Just so I'm clear, you know, what we're really talking about is, you know, kind of a buffer zone and the color of the building. Is that, I mean, I'm not trying to simplify things. I just want to understand what you're talking about, because I do sort of take issue to what you're saying is within the board's purview on this. I mean, it's protection of adjoining premises against seriously detrimental uses on the site. I mean, that's the standard. I haven't heard a single thing that, or problem with this site plan that technically falls within that element, unless there's something that I'm missing. And I'm looking through, I apologize, I don't have your April 26th letter, but I'm looking through your April 23rd letter now. It's right in front of me, and I'm not sure there's anything identified on there that would fall under that either.
The site plan review under the guidelines has you consider the neighbors. We're simply asking for you to consider the neighbors.
Seriously detrimental uses on the site. So, I mean, I don't want to quibble if that's all, but I'm just trying to get to the heart of this thing to figure out really where the issues lie. to the extent there are any. I mean, obviously, I hope that you can recognize that a tremendous amount of thought has gone into this. This is obviously an important project. If there's something else, I'd like for everybody to kind of put their cards on the table here. What else is it that we're talking about? Is it just the buffer zone and the colors?
No, it's not just the buffer zone and the colors, that we wouldn't have the tremendous amount of support and questions that we continue to have if it was simply just those in terms of the entirety of the project. And when you say we hope that we can understand how much effort by the town has gone into this, I would assume so, we would hope so, but we don't see it. I don't think I can make that clearer. It literally hasn't existed and been provided to us, despite the requirement to do so. So I can appreciate what has been provided in the site plan review, but as a full scope of what you're referring to, no, it hasn't been provided. So I can't agree with you that all of that work has been done because we haven't seen it. I can understand that it
So you're not going to answer my question. Pardon? I just want to get to it. What else is it that, if it's not just the buffer, if it's not just the colors, what else is it that we're talking about here?
So for example, the town at the meeting said that there would be no sound emanating from the site. We asked for what testing was performed to make this determination. None was provided. We asked how that determination was made, if there are any similar sites that either has been developed or this is based upon that the engineers had developed, and they refused to answer that. So no, we have no understanding how that determination was made. And I think when you think about seriously detrimental to the neighborhood, sound is of course a consideration. Just tonight, we're seeing the proposed light prospects at the last hour. Usually these are things that are provided with the initial site plan application so that there's a chance to review them. But no, they're just provided this evening. Those are all considerations that we haven't had a chance, quite frankly, to review because they're just brought up now for the first time. The lighting of whether it's down lighting or dark sky lighting, all of that reviewed for the very first time tonight and provided to us during the meeting is short-sighted, I think. When you know that there are abutters that have concerns. The color scheme, the plantings, those of course are things that can easily be addressed and can easily be placed into the site plan, but they didn't, and they need to be. These could also be conditions, of course, that the planning board places in, but how did the light set, the lighting, we asked for this previously and we're just getting it now. We don't have any studies on sound. These are all considerations that we think are seriously detrimental to the neighbors that we don't have answers to. And not just for the site plan of what the permanent structure would be, but what the noises and the disruption during the 12 to 18 months of construction, which is a considerable amount of time.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The question is why we don't answer those questions. I see the 11 questions from that are there, probably the same thing that Mr. Stetson is mentioning. I think they deserve to be answered. So I don't know who is going to do that. Is that maybe Mr. Field? But it should be answered, and it should be answered not qualitative, but quantitative, with actual basis in engineering, at least to some of those questions, and then we will complete what the abutters are asking for.
Sure. Well, so I want to jump out here a little bit. And first, Bob kind of hit, so here's my thought. I'm not looking to entertain a vote tonight. I'm looking to continue this meeting one more time because there was a letter that came in on the 23rd and then a letter that came in today. And I want to be able to have, the one that came in today, I saw, 15 minutes before the meeting as I was preparing. I want to have time for all of us to, look at those, and get whatever appropriate answers, from the town. Again, keeping in mind that this isn't a discovery process, to use legal terms. This is a site plan review. For example, we talked about the lighting council. The lighting information brought on tonight was actually a result of a request that I made at the last meeting. That is standard in site plan review. There's many items that we require in site plan review. Sometimes, things get forgotten or aren't there, or people think it's handled, or people aren't used to dealing with, one board or another. So I'm, happy with the response we received so far on the lighting. But again, I want to stress this: we're the planning board, and this is site plan review. And if a building meets all the zoning criteria and meets the use, then as well as I, then not something that you can, we're not the Conservation Commission. We don't have the ability to just say no. If you meet the bylaws, the building, is allowed. What we try to do is look at each site and each use. There's obviously some very understandably some sensitive aspects to this project, and we try to, being appointed citizen representatives of the town, we try to bridge the gap, if you will, between developers, or in this case, the town, and the residents. And it's easier on some projects than on others. And it is, I don't care what is proposed for this property, when there are multiple residents that have been out in such a rural setting for a long time. I understand, I've been there. It's really difficult to see something go up, but that doesn't mean that there's not the right to do it. It doesn't mean it's allowed. Our job is to make sure everything, as best it can, everything meets our bylaws, and that it is sensitively cited, properly cited, and takes into account all of the items, pertinent items that are called out in our bylaws and administrative rules and regs, etc. So I would ask, following up on Attorney Stetson's comments, I would ask that, this project, you and your team now are pretty familiar with this. You've seen this for at least 3 weeks, because that's how long since we all started this, right? So I would hope that, I know there's been at least one meeting on site with town staff. So let's get all those, as Bob said, what else is there? Let's get all the questions up now so that we can handle this. I don't want to, keep getting piecemeal. I want to, this project is finite, the resources are finite, so a lot of thought obviously is going into this from the abutters and their reps. So let's, any other questions, let's get them all out in the next couple of days, so that the planning staff, myself and fellow board members, and any other folks in town employment that deal with this, we can put together the most comprehensive set of answers, or possible solutions, such as the screening and the building color, so that we can progress on this and try to come to a resolution that is acceptable to all.
Chairman Strange, if I can just be very brief in my response. Yeah, I appreciate, again, your thoughtful consideration of everything, and we can agree to have any other additional questions that we would like answered by Thursday of this week, so you can have it all in front of you for, I understand you're gonna continue it, not take a vote tonight. We'll have it all this week, so you can have a full package of what we may be asking for, if there's anything else other than what has already been provided.
Great, appreciate it. Bob, does that work for you?
I think that's great. If we can just get it with a little bit longer lead time, I think that would serve all of us very, very well.
Right. All right. So, is there? I see there's a few hands raised. So, is there anything? I don't know if these are old questions or not. Any board members have anything else to say? I'll just read these. I see Joe Cohen from 59 Norton Ave at 7:21, so about 50 minutes. I don't think you are being sensitive to the abutter. It's a comment, I guess, more than a question. And then Nick Paone, why is the drinking water well for 4 Mill Road not located on any plans we have seen? If anybody knows the answer to that.
I will take a shot at this. Is it relevant to the location of the site?
I discussed it. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah, sorry.
The only setback requirement is for the septic system, which is 150 feet away from any private wells. And we're well beyond that just by the property line.
And Greg, Steve Walker has had his hand raised.
Sure, go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. First I wanted to say with regard to the dark sky lights, I work for a very large electrical distributor and have extensive contacts in the lighting industry. If it's a matter of money, I would be more than happy to pool those resources to get this equipment at a much cheaper cost than you otherwise might find it. So while that wouldn't impact me directly, I'm across the street. If it helps my neighbors, it's something I'd be more than happy to make the effort to do.
Appreciated that. I don't know if that's legal, but procurement laws, but.
And also the one thing that hasn't been brought up is a 60-foot tower, the communication tower, which I think, as we all agree, is sort of an antiquated technology. I know there are coverage issues in the area. I would like to think that there's some consideration to just basically running a hard line of fiber optic to the building, probably much more effective, much less of an eyesore to the neighbors, and I think it would be a win-win for all involved. And with regard to the sound modeling report, it's fine to say that certain equipment is going to behave a certain way, but according to the regulations, you need to address both decibel levels and pure tone conditions, and these conditions need to be met both at the property line at the nearest inhabited residence, and I don't know how you satisfy that without first establishing a baseline.
I guess for starters on the antenna, we are running fiber optic to all 3 well stations and the new treatment plant. The antennas for backup communication in case the fiber optic goes down. So this is critical infrastructure, and if the fiber optic were to go down, we need a backup in place.
Okay, is there some way we could basically have that tower pushed to the furthest point of the lot?
It currently is shown as far as possible, well, as far on the adjoining the paved area. Let me share my screen, that'll be easier. So can you see my screen?
I cannot.
There we go. How about now?
Okay.
Okay. So here we have the treatment plant,
yep.
and this area over here is for the transformer, the generator, and the antenna tower right here. We've located it. We still have to. There's utilities that have to connect the signal wiring from the building to the antenna, and we've purposefully put it on this side to be as far from the abutters.
If you don't mind me asking, what's the size of the transformer there? I didn't see in the equipment specs.
It's I think it's 10 by 10. It's an 8 by 8 transformer pad.
What's the KVA rating on the transformer?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, that actually would be important because I work in the solar industry and I run into this all the time. And the transformers do make noise, and again, it comes to the sound modeling report. Obviously there's a lot of factors there. You've got 4 pumps in the building, you've got a condenser outside, you've got a transformer outside. I think there really needs to be a boots on the ground sound modeling effort to, basically assure my neighbors, the immediate residents, that this isn't something that's gonna, disrupt them on a noise level at all hours of the night, right? Transformers run 24/7.
And it's placed as far as possible, as far from the
Yep, no, and I get
property
that.
line.
You know what, and just a full report assuring that would be great.
Maybe Chairman Strange, is that in the purview of the planning board?
I'll take that under advisement.
So Greg, if you think about that, bylaw has, performance standards for, for noise.
Right, for sound, for lots of
Right,
it.
so given that they're not close to the limits, it should be, it shouldn't require like an engineering study to demonstrate that, the equipment is, well within the.
Right, I just wrote a note to myself, find out the noise, it can't be that hard. Look up the model, see what the noise is compared to our bylaw, and
So
discuss
I just want to, the noise has come up a couple times. This will be obviously a very quiet building. It's insulated. This is very similar to the existing well stations we have out there now. There's transformers in well buildings with pumps in them, and there's no issue with noise. I don't believe any of the property owners have heard noise issues related to the well stations. It'll be a very similar situation.
This well station is going to be considerably closer and larger, however, so I think doing due diligence for these folks would be the right thing to do.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Walker?
That's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.
I appreciate your comments and questions. Stephanie, do you think I'm okay?
I think you're okay, and it looks like everybody who wanted to speak has spoken.
Okay, I have to give a presentation to the select board. That's what our communication's about here, so. Okay, so, as I indicated, given the lateness of everything that came in, or I don't mean it that way, but just given that we just got these things, and I understand they're important questions, and we have a commitment that by Thursday we'll have any further questions that will allow us to address those with the certain parties. So unless I hear otherwise, I think I see there's a couple of hands raised, but I know we just heard from those people, so I just think they haven't been taken down. And if any of the presenters or any of the board members have any other comments, otherwise I think we should just entertain a motion to continue this to our next meeting, unless you don't agree, Steph.
No.
We're good.
Motion to continue site plan review for Red Mill Road to May 24th.
I just had a clarification.
Could we
Before.
get a second
The
first?
next
and then we can
meeting
discuss?
is not May
I'll
20th,
second it.
Thank you.
but the
Okay.
next meeting is not May 24th. The next meeting
May
is May
10th,
10th.
right?
May 10th?
Yes.
I was gonna say about a month out.
I'll
Go ahead,
amend
Deb.
that to May 10th.
Yep, so I seconded it. I just so that the expectations are clear for everyone, is someone, and who is that person, going to respond to the questions that we'll get by Thursday in
So
writing,
okay.
or how does that work? Just
So
so
what
that
I'm gonna
everyone
do
is clear.
We'll be receiving by Thursday questions. I will then get a meeting together with Stephanie, and hopefully, Dave Fields or anybody on his team, any of the project team, so that I, as chair, can have an understanding of the questions, the issues, and we will put together comments or questions on each one of those, or there may be a moot point, and then we'll get that out to the board. Obviously, we can't have discussions till the meeting on that, but to me, that is the approach that I think that should be taken. It'll have the best path for success for all. So that way, we're not scrambling, over a weekend or 30 minutes before a meeting. And like I said, you know, and I think there's a lot of, I think a lot of the questions actually sort of kind of can be grouped together. And that way, any information, you know, to Peter's point before, you know, we have bylaws, we already have thresholds for noise and light. And, you know, and it's easy to, you know, to look at technical documents or existing situations we have in similar buildings in town, and address them and prepare answers for each of them and present them at the next meeting.
So just so that the abutters and the abutters attorney are clear, then we're not necessarily providing a written response and not a written response prior to the meeting. Basically, we're going to collect answers and information to their question, and we'll present those answers at the next meeting.
Well, no, I don't think I meant to say that, and I don't want to speak for everyone. And Greg, you know, Stephanie and Dave Fields and Greg Swan, and you know, they've been much more involved in this obviously than we have. And if there are answers, I think it would make sense if there's some answers or solutions that could go out ahead of time. Then I would recommend that we do that.
Yeah,
but again, that's conversation to be had when we can look at them, not really here off the cuff. I want to. You know, I want to take some time, research this list. I mean, like I said, I got it literally right before the meeting. So
Just to make clarification, it will be some kind of document before the meeting, next meeting, that we are going to issue with answers or something like that.
Well, let's be clear. I don't want to misspeak. The planning board, again, we have to remember our purview here. I don't know if we're going to issue. We're not going to issue anything. But I think maybe the project team, we can look. You know, I want to get a better understanding of these 20. You know, let's see, there's 24 today and 14 from last week. There may be some overlap. I don't know. So those 38 questions plus anything that comes in by Thursday. I want to get an understanding of those and see our, you know, what answers or you know we can get or any documentation and then but again I'm going to remember all the time, this is site plan review. This is not a court of law. We're not judges. We're site plan review. So.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't say that the board will issue a document. I say, will it be a document? That can be DPW. I don't know who. But the question was, is it going to be something, or we are going to come to the meeting and hear on the meeting what the answers are?
Right, could I respond to that?
Yeah, let me first and then I'll let you. I just say, as chair, I'll say it this way, as chair of the planning board, and please keep in mind, this just came in now, and I really, you know, so I want to get as much information for the board that I chair as I can. So if that means we are able to collect some information or create some sort of document or memo that can go out to the board, then it will happen. I don't know if that's the solution yet, because I haven't been able to sit with the team and I haven't looked at the list. So Stephanie, go ahead.
I was going to say essentially what you said, maybe just a little bit differently. There may be some answers that are very easily answered and can be put into a document, and some that may need to be discussed at the next meeting. But again, we to Greg's point, we need to get together. We need to go through these. I think, as Greg said, that a lot of them can be grouped together and responded in that way. So we need the time to be able to go through them.
Okay, so we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Strange, aye.
DeShane, aye.
That's an aye.
Balsaric, aye.
And just to be clear, that was to May 10th, correct?
Correct, to continue to May 10th. Great. All right, well, thank you everybody for coming in. So Peter, I gotta be quick here. I have to bow out and go to the select board. So I'm gonna hand this over to you. And then everyone, I'm sure, you know, by later in the week, Stephanie will be sending out at least an update of where we're at with all of this. Take it there. Thank you for all your time. Have a nice night.
Thanks, Greg.
Don't talk about me when I'm gone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. All right. So we're continuing the meeting here. Having addressed 12 Red Mill Road. Stephanie, we have some zoning discussion, is that?
Well, really, I had talked with Greg, Greg and I talked last week, we put that on the agenda because at the last meeting, when the board made their votes for the zoning amendments for the Maytown meeting, it was the discussion both the week before and at the, the meeting before and at the last meeting was that the board wants to continue the conversation and discussion on the accessory structures as well as the Queesit. And Greg and I thought it probably made sense. Let's get through town meeting and then start right in on that.
Okay, yeah. So we'll keep them on the agenda, but it might not be
Right.
every meeting.
It's more of a reminder that that's, a top priority for the board.
Okay. While we're looking at that on the agenda, does anyone have any ideas that they could, propose or want to talk about, or should we just table that for now?
I'm fine tabling it for now.
Yeah, Stephanie, as the Career Plaza group, have they, thought of any new ideas or thought about?
I have been playing telephone tag with Ed Walsh to see, he's called me and I've tried to return his call. So I think he's trying to get something together, probably with Greg and I.
Yeah, right. I mean, we talked about, that we're not doing the zoning just for that one location, but that is a very important location. So, I think we're happy to listen to everyone in town, especially, people that want to do some business down there. So hopefully that dialogue continues. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to meeting minutes. Looks like I think there was just one set of minutes, if I went through my packet correctly.
Yes.
And it looked okay to me.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor, DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Kevin,
Sarah guy.
Thank you. Other business? Stephanie, do you have any chair report substitutions?
I don't have anything else at this point.
What about the Sawmill Village? Is that just still with Conservation Commission?
It is, they're still working on the floodplain analysis and the documentation supporting the line. And there have been some very good conversations with Woodard and Curran and some good feedback. So we asked that a couple of things have happened. But let me finish. So I think that they're in good shape and they really expect to be able to come back to the Conservation Commission. One of the challenges with the Conservation Commission is that they had a member step down and that left a very short board that could vote because of the time that one of their newest members was not appointed until after the first two meetings, which are really the meetings that have happened. So the applicant has withdrawn their application with the Conservation Commission and is resubmitting it to be heard when the new member is appointed.
Thank you. Well, that's all we have on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything to talk about, or should we finish this up?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, DeShane, aye.
Stetson, aye.
Sarah guy.
Thank you all.
That passes. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.